Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Beginning today, we're back on our weekly broadcast schedule as we begin the countdown for Season 2 under Coach Jim Harbaugh. In the coming 4 weeks, we'll preview the season and have you all ready for the opener against Hawaii on September 3rd. We begin with Michigan beat writer extraordinaire Nick Baumgardner from MLive. He'll join me in just a minute on our Gameday segment. First, a few news and notes to get us started. On Monday, the new Jumpman and Nike gear hit the shelves at the M-Den. Thousands of people were lined up all night to get their hands on the new stuff. You can check out the M-Den site to see what's new or drop by one of the stores and do a little shopping. I think it's safe to say we'll see a lot more new t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies in the big house this season. Practice officially gets underway next Monday. At last week's Big Ten Media Days, Jim Harbaugh more or less said the team was going back in the submarine this year and would not resurface until September 3rd. So there won't be much news coming from behind the walls of Fort Schembechler. We'll report what we hear, but other than that, we'll stick with what we do know and preview the team and coming season for the next 4 weeks. The Game Day segment with Nick is just over 30 minutes today, so I'll keep it short on the news and notes. Before we join him, I'd like to let you know there's an exciting new sports app that is about to hit the market in September. It's developed by the same team that brought us Madden football and basketball for EA Sports. It's unique, it's exciting, and it's for sports fans of all ages. Even if you're not a big gamer like me, I think you'll find this app very cool. It's going to be available for free from iTunes and Google Play in September. If you'd like details or a sneak peek, you can email playitfirst@yahoo.com. That's playitfirst@yahoo.com, and please include your cell phone number on the email. That's playitfirst@yahoo.com, and again, include your cell number. I'll have this info on my show notes page just in case you don't have a pen or a pencil handy. We've waited 7 long months to preview this coming season, and the time has finally arrived. Let's get to it. Beat writer Nick Baumgardner from MLive is here on the Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Back with us. I think the last time we had this gentleman on was just after the spring football game. Michigan beat writer Nick Baumgardner from MLive. Good to have you back, Nick.
Good to be here, Mike. I just tweeted that I was still on your show, and that must mean that football's here, because every time I talk to you in the summer, I mean, season's right around the corner. So here we go.
Here we go, man. I mean, here it is, August 1st, as we tape this on a Monday morning, and yeah, a week from today, things get rolling in earnest. I guess I was just wondering this morning if everyone's going to survive the Nike unveiling today.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That was I was out there until around, I want to say like 2 a.m. Monday morning, Sunday night, and that was quite a scene. I mean, we had met with some of the Nike or some of the M-Den folks a couple weeks ago, and they told us that they anticipated quite a crowd, but I don't know if anyone. I mean, there were several thousand people that flooded the streets downtown. Jimmy King, I think, at first remarked that this felt like that it felt like some sort of championship parade or something. And I mean, that kind of hit me, and I was like, well, that's really kind of what it does feel like. And yeah, people were thrilled, but they were out there till 2, 3, 4 in the morning, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a big deal. We're going to see a lot of new gear in the stands this year, so that'll be fun. Well, Big Ten Media Days were last week in Chicago, Nick. Jim Harbaugh drew big crowds at all of his appearances. He is just always so interesting to listen to, isn't he?
Yeah, and this year maybe more than last year in that I think that it was really striking to me that he's more comfortable. I think he was much more comfortable talking about his players. It kind of hit me last year in the summer and even in the spring and even somewhat in the fall that he really didn't know the team, that well. There were certain guys that he'd gotten to know a little bit, but he didn't know them on any kind of intimate level. There wasn't enough time for that. He was still in the process of figuring that out. I think he I mentioned again earlier this week that, that first year, especially those first few months there, for a first-year head coach are truly, uncharted water. You have no idea, what's going on. And if you can remember back, I mean, he was playing guys at different positions in spring. He didn't know what was, people didn't know what was going on, and he was still figuring it out. But a year removed into the second year, much more comfortable, knows his guys, knows who he can count on, knows he has work to do, and everybody around him seemed more comfortable as well, the players and everything involved. So, he was more relaxed, I feel like, confident. His players were relaxed and confident. They know what their goals are, and they know that they've got to work to get them. Nobody said anything crazy, but at the same time, it struck me completely across the board that everybody in that Michigan contingent was just much more relaxed, much more comfortable, maybe as comfortable as I've seen a Michigan team at a summer media days like that since I've been covering them.
Well, we're a week away from the opening of fall camp, and before camp starts officially on Monday, this Saturday, Michigan hosts the barbecue in the Big House. And this event, Nick, just seems to get bigger and bigger every year. Yeah,
it's really maybe the only thing remaining from the Rich Rodriguez era. Rich started the barbecue years ago, and Brady Hoke continued it, and Jim Harbaugh's picked it right back up again. And I think it was a great idea by Rich a long time ago, because it's been something that's been emulated and copied somewhat by a lot of these other schools. It's one of those last things of the summer that you do before you start getting down to business with your team. And Michigan's got a slew of visitors coming in over the years. This event has given them a ton of momentum toward getting commitments on a lot of guys. It's been one that they've really hammered home on some kids that they're really kind of reaching for, that they might not, even guys they might not be in great position for, but maybe have a chance with. They can get them on campus, and then maybe squeeze an official visit out of them later in the fall. And obviously the number one guy on that list is Najee Harris, number one player in the country, 5-star running back who's committed to Alabama. Same situation like I just said. I mean, he's a guy that, knows Michigan, knows of them, knows what they can do, has met them before, worked with them at a satellite camp. But until you get him on campus, you can't really say that you've got any kind of shot at maybe changing his mind. But next weekend they get that chance, and whether it happens or not, we'll see. But that's something where if they can impress him, and some other guys as well, if they can impress him, maybe they can get a visit out of him or official visit in the fall, and maybe make him think about it. So this is a big event. It's the biggest one of the summer, and the last one really that they'll do until official visits come around.
Well, let's get to the meat and potatoes of it, Nick. Jim Harbaugh gets season 2 underway on Monday, and I think for most fans, the focus is going to be on the quarterback battle. O'Korn, Spate, Shane Morris. When September 3rd rolls around, do you have a gut feel right now for who we'll see under center, or do you truly believe this is a competition that is undecided?
I think it's undecided. I really believe that, but I think it's between. I don't think it's as wide of a net as Harbaugh's casting it. I think it's between Spate and O'Korn. Those are the two guys. Depending on who you asked, most people would tell you up there, even though Harbaugh never really officially declared a leader. Most people would say that Wilton Spate. Most people who saw every practice would say Wilton Spate finished, a nose ahead of John O'Korn in spring, which surprised a lot of people. Wilton Spate got a lot better, improved more than I think people anticipated him to improve, and John O'Korn did not perform quite at the level they were anticipating and hoping. You got to remember, John O'Korn is the guy that Michigan staff behind the closed doors has told people since he walked on campus a year ago, this is the most talented quarterback we have, and they were including Jake Rudock in that statement when they said that. So John O'Korn has a lot of physical ability, he has a lot of physical talent, but the consistency just wasn't there. There was a lot of mistakes in terms of turnovers. That's really the thing. John O'Korn's the guy who can make you one huge play, and then 2 minutes later he'll throw a pick six, and that's something that Harbaugh just can't. He can't have that in that offense. They're not built for that, and that's something he's got to figure out and got to get rid of it. Get rid of out of his game. If he can fix that, then I think John O'Korn's a starter, because I think he's got the highest ceiling, and he's a guy who can make the most plays. He's the guy who can make the play when there's nothing else to be made, so to speak, like they always like to say. Wilton was probably a little more consistent, but at the same time isn't that explosive. And he's never really played. He played, 1 quarter last year in relief, and obviously did a nice job, but at the same time there's really no experience there to lean on. So we'll see how it goes. I don't think it's going to take him that long to figure it out. I mean, it may take him right up until the opener to announce it, maybe even to the guys. But I think, he's going into this knowing that within 5 to 10 days, he's going to know. I mean, he's going to know which guy got better in the summer, and he's going to know which guy, didn't get as better, I guess, so to speak, in the summer. And as time goes on, those reps will kind of reflect that. Not that we'll see it, because we won't be there, but I think that they'll have a good idea pretty quick. And the one last thing on that one, the thing that he pointed out, somebody asked, does that give you a problem with trying to anticipate what your offense is going to look like? And he said that's a good question, because normally the quarterback dictates the offense, but those guys are similar players, so it's not necessarily something they got to rush, but at the same time, you can't take forever with it. And I'm sure that midway through fall camp, I'm sure he'll have his answer.
Well, there was some thought or some talk that the team was heading back down in the submarine starting next Monday when practice starts. So it's going to be hard to glean any kind of information if the team goes quiet during the 3-week period, Nick.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. I asked if that was going to occur, and he said something along the lines, if you guys will let me do it, then I'm going to do it. And I said, do you really have a choice? And it was kind of like, no, you don't. And that's where it ended. So, yeah, I would assume for, 2.5, maybe even 3 weeks there in early August that they'll go dark. And when I mean go dark, they'll really go dark. I mean, that's, last year at that time, players weren't even talking to their parents. I mean, not very much during the first couple of weeks. And really, looking back on it, I think that was maybe one of the more beneficial things he did. A lot of those guys have said that throughout the year, that first 2-3 weeks of camp, when it was just them and only them at all times, they really came together as a team, and it really helped them out. So, I wasn't surprised. I thought, it seemed to really work for them last year. Something that maybe only he can get away with, because in many other markets, schools wouldn't tolerate it. I mean, they'd make him go out and answer questions and make him be available. I think he knows that. I think he's taking advantage of that. And I think it probably helps the team. So, I wasn't surprised at all. Well,
in the backfield behind whoever the starting quarterback is on September 3rd, we think Davion Smith is still the leader, we think. Ty Isaac made his case in the spring, and Drake Johnson survived his forklift accident to give Michigan really a nice 1-2-3 punch, Nick. Each of them brings a little bit something different to the table, but for the first time in a long time, there's some quality depth there.
Yeah, I mean, really, really nice, almost proven depth. Really, I mean, Ty Isaac, the one thing was standing there, but you know what you can get from Davion Smith if he's healthy, of course. He's a guy whose legs never stop. He's a hard guy to bring down. Sort of the perfect fit for that offense in terms of a guy who constantly gets 2, 3, 4 extra yards on every play. I mean, he's I did one game last year. I counted up everything, and I think Davion had. Maybe it was Oregon State or one of those games, maybe even BYU, where he had something like, I think he rushed for 130 yards. I think 75 of them were after contact. So, I mean, that's the stuff Harbaugh loves. That's why I think Davion was his favorite back last year, his ability to do that. And then, Drake Johnson, obviously, it's all going to depend on the health of Drake. I mean, I know this crazy forklift thing happened and everything else, but, the knees, I'm interested to see how the knees hold up, because we didn't see the Drake Johnson that I remember from late in 2014, we didn't see him last year until maybe the bowl game. A couple spurts we saw him in the bowl game where he looked like he had some more juice in his legs. So I'll be interested to see how that works out, how much you can lean on him. But either way, they know they can trust Drake, and he's going to play as long as he's healthy. And then Ty Isaac, they weren't sure what they were going to get out of him. There was a couple points last year where I think they were all ready to throw in the towel on that one, Ty included. But he had a great spring. I mean, everyone that had any kind of say in it said that he had a really, really good spring. Prepared hard, lost weight, got stronger, got tougher, was more willing to drop his shoulder and use the 230 pounds that he has to his advantage instead of avoiding contact like he did all of last year. So I think they were hopeful that he can be a guy who, along with, it can be a similar back to what Davion is, but on top of that, Ty Isaac has terrific speed. And he can maybe be a guy that, maybe he can, if he breaks a couple tackles, maybe he can break it the rest of the way, whereas Davion's not going to really run away from anybody. I think if they can get that, then they've got 3 really, really good ones to lean on, for what will be a long season.
And Jim Harbaugh, as we know, likes his fullbacks, and we're going to see a couple of new faces as the battering rams there, Nick.
Yeah. The number one was Khalid Hill, the converted tight end, who will still probably see a little bit of time at tight end, but an interesting move, but one that didn't surprise me at all. Something that Khalid embraced, and I think if you want it to happen, he's only 6'1", but he's 260 pounds. He's a pretty good athlete. He can hit, he can catch. He's got soft hands and good feet. We'll see how quickly it takes him to adjust to everything. I know Henry Poggi, who's also back, who had a strong close to last season, has admitted that, when he transitioned to fullback last year, that was something where even until maybe the third or fourth game, those first couple of games, he was out there kind of just guessing at what he was supposed to do. And eventually it kind of clicked for him. But between those two, two athletic guys who are big, strong guys who can do a lot of different stuff, I'll be interested to see if they can, I don't think it's going to be right out the gate like it was last year, where Joe Carriage is so comfortable with the position and Sione Huma was also so comfortable with it they could just hand them the ball like they were doing and things were going to happen. But I do think in time you'll see an ability to maybe use a fullback in the passing game maybe more than you ever have. But again, I think that two really athletic guys were excited to play the position and willing to do it. I mean, from the sounds of it, after year one, there was almost a fight between people who were trying to switch positions to fullback because they saw how much the guy got to touch the ball and how much they played him. So a desired position on the roster, no doubt, and one that will be interesting to watch.
Well, at the wideouts, Nick, Amara Darboh and Jehu Chesson are back, and they're joined by a host of young, but many of them unproven talents. Still, this could be a pretty good group with a high ceiling.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, first things first are the guys coming back. I mean, you mentioned it. Darboh or Chesson was a first-team All-Big Ten player last year. Darboh was, I believe, an honorable mention, but, Amara led the team in catches. Jehu Chesson led the team in yards. That's a really good 1-2 that you're bringing back. That's probably as talented and deep as anybody else in the country to bring back basically all of your top 2 receiving yards from a year ago. The one thing to watch is Jehu Chesson's knee to see how healthy he is when everything starts. Harbaugh still hasn't come out yet and said 100% that he's ready to go. A couple of players even said earlier this week that Jehu was still sort of rehabbing that knee and wasn't totally back in off-season workouts, but they still have a month to go before the season begins. So at worst, maybe it takes him a couple of games to get back into that old form. But Amara Darboh was fantastic in the spring. He was, Harbaugh said many times now that he thinks he's now the best receiver on the team. So he thinks he elevated himself above Jehu, and Jehu's number 2. But, obviously that could change. A lot of competition going on there. And then the good thing that they have is, like you said, Mike, they bring in, I want to say it's 5 or 6 true freshmen that can play receiver, and with the addition of obviously Grant Perry's still there, Drake Harris is still there, Maurice Ways when he gets back from his foot, but all those young guys will now have the chance for only 1 year, but still they get the 1 year of watching Amara and Jehu Chesson work, and I think that's the big key. Is Jehu Chesson and Amara Darboh didn't have that when they came in here. Jeremy Gallen didn't have that when he came in here. A lot of those guys had to figure it out on their own. Well, these young guys now, at receiver, now have 2, shining examples really to watch in terms of how they prepare, how they block, how they run their routes, how they finish plays, and everything else. Because if you asked, Jim Harbaugh, who his top 5 most dependable players were, I think Amara Darboh and Jehu Chesson would be both in the top 5 on that list. So a lot of room for growth for those young guys, and I think it's a great opportunity for them to study and watch how those guys do. Because if you're Jed Fish, you just say, okay, we'll just do it the way they did it, because they've sort of mastered how we do things here, and I think that's a big benefit for everyone involved.
Well, going into spring practice, some of us thought the tight end was thin after Jake Butt, tight end spot, I should say. But with Wheatley, Bunting, Zach Gentry, all emerging, having very good springs, that is now considered a deep position group, Nick.
Yeah, getting deeper. As you got Sean McKeon was here in the spring, and then Devin Asiasi, the talent from California, will be here as well. So all of a sudden, like you said, yeah, I mean, something that looked thin now all of a sudden looks like where's all that playing time going to come from, and who's going to get it? I mean, Tyrone Wheatley looked fantastic in the spring. Looked like a difference maker. I mean, a guy that's with this scary combination of size and speed and hands and everything else. I mean, it took 5 minutes, Mike, in Florida, to understand why they didn't move him to offensive line. There were so many people that asked that question: Is Wheatley going to get moved to offensive line? Is maybe he'll play defensive end? I don't know. I saw him run 2 routes, and I was like, well, I know why they never moved him, because this guy can catch everything. He's got great feet. He's not a breakaway player or anything, but I mean, he can run away from a slow linebacker without much problem. So he looks like a scary talent who's still trying to learn the position, I'm sure, but a guy that has a super high ceiling and can be really, really good for them. And then, you mentioned Zach Gentry, a guy who at the beginning of spring looked completely lost, but by the end of it, looked like a weapon, looked like a guy who can get on the field and make some things happen. I mean, scary fast with those long legs, and he's added weight. He's up around 250 pounds. Has figured out a little bit better how to catch the ball. I think he understands the routes, everything else, being a former quarterback. But he looked like a guy who tight end does, kind of looks like his natural position, so to speak. So, and we'll have to wait and see what Ian Bunting can do. That's still a guy who we're waiting to see if he can turn a corner. And then the young guys, because, again, I was very impressed with Sean McKeon. I thought he had a really good spring for a true freshman. We haven't got to see Asiasi yet, but very talented group, no question about it. I think a lot of them are going to play. I think 4 at least are going to get snaps, and you might even see 5 at some point over time, but I think a lot of them are going to get a chance. And certainly, as we know, they use multiple tight ends in a lot of sets, so I think a lot of guys are going to see time. A lot of guys have a chance to prove themselves.
No, I think never a bad thing to have that kind of depth and talent at a position group. The one position group that I think I'm focused on more than any, though, Nick, and worries me more than any still, is that offensive line. I mean, plenty of experience. We all know that now. But this group still has plenty to prove.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I remember seeing, I think it was Bruce Feldman, who does a terrific job covering college football nationally. I think Bruce had ranked Michigan's offensive line as like the 3rd best in the country or something like that. And I kind of laughed and joked. I was like, well, I think you're doing that because, they have all these 5th-year seniors, and I understand that. I mean, if you're not watching it as closely as like you or I do, Mike, you probably look at that and say, oh, well, it must be great. But like you said, I mean, yeah, the questions are, is experience everything, and is experience the only thing you have because there's nobody behind them that's good enough to take their job? And that's been the question with a Kyle Kalis, a Ben Braden, and an Eric Magnuson. Really, with Kalis and Braden, that's been the question for almost their whole career. I mean, that's, Kalis at times can still look like, can give you shades of the guy who was this top-notch recruit, and everybody thought he was going to be a star and everything else. I mean, that's still in there, and you can still see that at times. But then there's other, 2 snaps later, it'll be something where he's catching air, and you don't know what he's doing, and it blows up a play. And then Braden, I thought he improved last year. I think he got better. He started out terribly as the year started, but got better as the year went on. I think maybe he can turn a corner, and maybe he can be a better football player this year, because I think that last year really helped him out a lot. I still don't know about Kalis, and Magnuson is still, he's up and down, but I think he's maybe more consistent than the other 2. And I guess the other question, which honestly, this is a surprising part for me, but I don't think Mason Cole at center will be a problem. I think that's the natural thing everybody looks at, and they say, well, you're replacing Graham Glasgow, who was easily your best player last year up front, with a guy who's never played center before. But you got to remember, when Mason Cole came in here, came to Michigan, he was projected as an interior lineman. He was supposed to be a guard, and they made him play left tackle because they didn't have anybody that could play left tackle, and he did it fine. I mean, he was a true freshman starter, the only guy ever to do that here. He's the smartest lineman they have in terms of being able to adapt and catch up to things and internalize information. And the second smartest lineman might be Grant Newsome, who's the guy who's going to take over for him at left tackle. Same thing, a guy who can take information in really quickly, put it together on the field, doesn't make a whole lot of mental errors and that type of stuff. And then, obviously Cole is easily their best offensive lineman physically as well. So I think that'll help out more than people realize maybe up at first, but the key is going to be those seniors. I would be more concerned about them than I would be anything else in terms of when are they going to turn the corner and when are they going to become 5th-year senior offensive linemen. And I think if they can do that and play up to that standard, then I think they'll have a fine year. But you're right. I mean, that's a question mark, and that's one of those things that we just have to see it. We have to see how they perform because they can't say anything anymore. We know what, we've talked about 1,000 times. We just got to see it on the field. And if they play the way they did in the Super Bowl at the end of the year last year, then I think they'll be okay. But if they play the way they did against Ohio State or Penn State or any of those weeks before, then it could be a long road.
With us here on our Game Day segment this week as we start the previews in hopes of the big opener against Hawaii on September 3rd is Michigan beat writer Nick Baumgardner from MLive. Nick, on defense, we've heard so much about Don Brown. Former players loved him. He's highly regarded in coaching circles around the country. What makes Don Brown different than anyone else?
Yeah, he's just, the path he's taken is so unique. He's coached at all these small schools up in the Northeast. He coached baseball at one point. He was a head coach at UMass, brought them to the national championship game in 1AA. And the theme that I got throughout, well, number one was everywhere he'd been, the team had gotten better. And they'd either won at the highest level they'd ever won at, or they had, gotten off the mat and gotten themselves respectable. And then two, players love him because he's a guy in coaching who still has relationships with guys that he coached 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 5 years ago. He connects with them. They like him. I think he gets to know them on a personal level, and he's the type of guy they want to play for. And I think that's something that shines through with coaches who've been around. It reminded me a lot of Greg Madison, honestly, because that's exactly how it is with Greg Madison. You can talk to, Jared Irons, who played for Greg, forever ago, and he still loves him. And the same thing. And Greg could tell you a story about Jared Irons every day, and they haven't been together on the field in forever. And I think it was the same way with Don Brown. There were so many guys that you could talk to that played for him in the 90s or whatever it might have been, and they just, it was, they had the time of their life playing for him. And, there were times where he was a coordinator at a school, and they were more fond of him than they were the head coach. So I think that's a big part of why he's been successful. He's pretty good at getting guys to buy in, and that we saw that some in the spring. There wasn't a whole lot of pushback there. They changed a lot of stuff. It was stuff that was exciting for the guys. They all bought into it, and they installed everything pretty quickly. So, we'll see how it translates. I think this is probably the most talented defense he's ever gotten a chance to work with in terms of NFL talent and everything else. And I think he's also interested in the challenge. I think that's one thing that he'd said, that this is a huge challenge for him. He's done about everything else in his career. And if he could, help this team reach new heights, I think that'd be quite a cap to the 60s for him. He's now 60 years old.
Well, just about every preseason magazine, Nick, I've picked up says Michigan's defensive line group this year could be one of its best ever. And, I've been around long enough to see some pretty good defensive line groups come through. But on paper, this is a very imposing group of players with depth. Yeah,
this is, it's hard to compare it to what Alabama does. Alabama seems to just have a way of having 10 guys every year who are like all conference or NFL type bodies. This is about as close as you might get, to be quite honest. This is a true 8-man rotation with 5, maybe 6 guys, if I'm thinking off the top of my head, at least 5 who can play in the NFL. That's probably 6. Guys that are just, and you look at Wormley, who's been here and played every position and done it for 3 years. And, there's a bunch of people at Media Day. You talked to several different offensive players, and Wormley's name was brought up with Joey Bosa as one of the best defensive linemen in the league last year. So people, respect the heck out of him and what he's been able to accomplish. I thought Chris Wormley would have been drafted rather high. I thought he would have went ahead of Willie Henry if he wanted to go out last year. He chose to come back. So there you go. You got an NFL player coming back in Chris Wormley. You've got Ryan Glasgow, who I thought was playing at an NFL-type level before he hurt his shoulder. He's back. He's healthy. Brian Monet, who the staff loved, who hurt his ankle before he even really got to do anything, is back. And he's obviously a physical, freak. Maurice Hurst had the best season he's had. Again, a guy with NFL potential who can get quarterback, get the backfield, make things uncomfortable for you. Taco Charlton, same thing. Physical, the body, everything else, and all the athletic attributes that go with it. And then you put, Rashawn Gary in there, who I have seen. That's the guy. I don't normally jump on the old, is this freshman going to be ready to play right now? Is this guy going to be ready to go right now? The only guy that I was ever, he's probably going to be ready to start immediately was Peppers. And I would add Rashawn Gary to that list. I think Rashawn Gary will be physically able to go in and win a job in camp without having been here in spring, even with this defensive line being as deep as it is. Even if he doesn't win the job, he will certainly be in the rotation and certainly be able to play. He's a physical monster, fast, great hands, extremely powerful, who can play on the edge or he can play inside. And that's the other thing is you've got an 8-man rotation with 4 guys who can play 2 or maybe 3 spots. And Greg Madison has spent all summer with the biggest grin on his face that I've seen ever. And I think that there's a reason why for it. I think these guys are the best defensive line in the league. and maybe one of the best, if not the best in the country. And I think if they stay healthy, they'll have a chance to prove that.
Well, you mentioned Jabril Peppers. He's been compared now to Charles Woodson and other great two-way players of the past. Jim Harbaugh said this offseason that he's coached very few players at the college or pro level who understand the concept the first time you explain it to them. And Don Brown says he's just different. What a weapon this kid is, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, Harbaugh basically called him an NFL player. I mean, he said he called him a world-class athlete, a guy who, like you said, he said if Jabril played offense exclusively, he'd be the team's best slot receiver, maybe the best running back, maybe the best outside receiver. As it is, he's the best defensive back they have. He's going to play linebacker, overturn kicks, do everything else. Never complains about it, wants to do it all, doesn't ask his load lightened. And yeah, I mean, this is a guy who can do everything. And I think that if you're being rational, you understand that you probably only have him for one more year. So I think they are planning to use him in just about every single possible way they can, which is part of the reason why I think you saw him play a little bit of that hybrid linebacker spot, which I think will be his, home base, so to speak, for a while. I think he's the type of guy who can fill the role of that. He can get in the backfield, he can make plays on the quarterback, he can rack up tackles for loss. I think I averaged out what the Sam linebacker's stats were for Don Brown over the last couple of years, and it was somewhere, 15, 16 tackles for loss every year, a handful of sacks, and just a guy who was all over the field making plays. I think that's what they hope he can be. But the other wrinkle, is that you can put him in on offense anywhere, and it's an immediate head-turning thing for the defense. And the advantage that they really get from it is every week they can add something that no one has seen on tape and no one is ready for. And that is just the ultimate advantage. As Jim Harbaugh has said many times, that all you have to do with Jabril is tell him what he's supposed to do, and then 20 minutes later he's doing it on the field and he's not making the same mistake twice. He can take information and put it together so fast, and that allows them to do so many different things offensively with him that scares people and really makes defenses think. So, it's just a huge, huge weapon for them, the best athlete on the team, maybe the best athlete in the country, and a true game-changing type player. A lot of things he's got to improve upon as well. I mean, in terms of making some of those plays, we've got to see it. I think he was close a lot of times last year to make him just see some of these crazy game-breaking plays. That'd be one thing where I would say, some improvement needs to happen. He still hasn't had a pick yet. Those types of things. Forcing turnovers, causing turnovers, creating defensive touchdowns. I mean, the bar is so high for him and the potential is so great that I think it's fair to almost, it might seem unfair, but I think it's fair to expect those types of things from him because he's such a great athlete. And I think he expects those from himself, and we'll see if he can get it done.
Well, the expectation meter is in the red, and we can expect that to go crazy in the next 3 or 4 weeks as we approach the Hawaii opener. And I know fans get sick of hearing this, but I think we have to keep it in mind, and I've always believed it's true. Offense puts them in the seats. Defense wins championships. And the best thing about having a defense like this, Nick, because we know it's going to be good, is you can take more time building that offense, building cohesion with a new quarterback. That is a luxury that cannot be understated, Nick.
Totally. And the only thing that, it should be noted, the only thing that can torpedo a top 4, top 5, top 3 defense like this is an offense that is just completely and totally inept. We saw years here in the previous regime where they had really, really good defenses that were just torpedoed because the offense just kept killing them. I mean, they kept putting them in these terrible spots. The one thing to take into mind there is that, it might be something where they struggle in the first couple of games, like you said, or it may take a minute for them to get their feet under them. But at the same time, you got to remember that defense is so good that as long as they're not killing them, as long as they're not putting them in these terrible spots, defense will take care of business. I mean, if it's one thing where you go out and they tell them against a lesser opponent, hey, we only need you to score 10 points, we'll get the job done. That's a pretty good luxury. I mean, that's the thing that, if they stay healthy throughout the rest of the year, if the offense continues to improve and becomes even close to what it was last year by the end of the year, if the defense is as good as everybody thinks it'll be, then that is certainly something you can lean on in any game. And that's one thing too. I get a lot of questions about, how difficult is that road schedule for them at the end of the year with the at Michigan State, at Iowa, at Ohio State. And my answer has always been, if your defense is truly as good as its potential shows and what it can be. If it reaches that level, then you should be fine in some of those road games, because that's the way you win on the road. You go into someone's building and you don't let them do anything, because your defense is just completely taking them out of the game. And if Michigan's defense can reach the level of potential that I think a lot of people think they have, which is number one, then those road games all of a sudden become a little easier to win, because I think they're going to be tough to move on. It's you look at across the board. Jordan Lewis is the best corner I've seen at Michigan since I've been covering him. Jabril Peppers is a dynamic athlete. They bring back everyone on the defensive line. The only questions they have are a linebacker, but they're putting Peppers there now, so it's just like, they're just loaded across the board. So the defense holds up, then yeah, it's going to be a really special year for Michigan.
I think everyone agrees with that, and we're in wait-and-see mode for the next 3.5, well, actually next month. We have a kickoff again for the openers on September 3rd, but we'll be able to talk for the next month, but we won't see results until September 3rd, but it's going to be an exciting season. So our guest today on the show and our first preview in the month of August has been Michigan beat writer Nick Baumgardner from MLive. Nick, as always, a pleasure, and I know my listeners love hearing from you, so we'll get you back soon once the season starts rolling several times.
Absolutely, Mike, anytime.
Wolverine Quick Hits is next as we wrap it up for another week here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Wolverine Quick Hits today, thanks to Michigan beat writer Nick Baumgardner from MLive for joining us. Nick does a fantastic job covering the team, and he'll be back with us many times this fall. Next week, the radio voice of Michigan football joins us. Jim Brandstatter will be my guest. He's a tough guy to pin down because of his schedule. Doing radio color for the Lions and then play-by-play for Michigan makes him a very busy guy. So right now was a good time to get him. He's a great guy, and I'm sure you'll enjoy his insight into Jim Harbaugh and this year's team, so don't miss that next week. Before we close, I'd like to remind you again that there's an exciting new sports app that is about to hit the market in September, developed by the same team that brought us Madden football and basketball for EA Sports. It's unique, it's exciting, and for sports fans of all ages. Even if you're not a big gamer, and that includes me, I think you'll find this app very cool. It will be available for free from iTunes and Google Play in September. If you'd like details or a sneak peek, you can email playitfirst@yahoo.com and include your cell phone number in the email. That's playitfirst@yahoo.com and include your cell phone number, please. I'll have this info on my show notes page in case you don't have a pen or a pencil handy. The Michigan Man app is available in the iTunes and Google Play stores, and this fall we'll join the team at iHeartRadio. So get ready for the upcoming season and check out one of my free apps. That will do it for this week. Don't forget to join us again next week as we continue our countdown to the opener with Michigan football radio voice Jim Brandstatter. Until then, have a great Wolverine week, everyone. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!